Hello and welcome to this webinar. I will just wait a few seconds as people are getting in. So thank you very much for joining this webinar about 21 CFR Part 11 compliance in cell counting. My name is Jonas. I'm the Global Product Manager here at ChemoMetec, and I'm joined here today by James, who is a field application scientist with many years of stem cell research behind him. And he also has a lot of field experience. And he's been involved as well in release of our 21 CFR Part 11 ready software. So today I will talk just briefly about the structure of this webinar. And we will have a presentation, which will be around 20 minutes by James. And then we will have a Q&A session, which will be around 10 minutes. We know that the limited time may be a problem regarding the questions. So if you have any questions that are not answered during these 10 minutes, we will answer them subsequently by email. Please use the Q&A functionality at the bottom of this webinar to ask questions. And then if you have any technical issues that could be because of our transmission, please let us know. If there's issues with the sound of the picture, use the chat function to let us know. I'll start by talking a bit about our products. So we've made cell counters for more than 20 years, and we are focused on making instruments for counting and analyzing cells. And the focus has been to simplify the instrument for multiple purposes. One of the main purposes is, of course, to introduce robustness to our instruments. Another purpose is to simplify in regards to release during regulated processes. So therefore, we have a workflow that's extremely simple, where you have a cassette that you load. The cassette has an embedded pipette and dye staining chamber. But still have a manual application in that you need to put the cassette to the instruments. So we will in the future release instruments. So we've already started the release procedures for our cytometric, so our semi and fully automated instruments. So the two main instruments that are used now in cell-based therapies are the NC200 and the NC202. And today we will talk mostly about the NC202, and I will leave it to you, James, to talk about the secure mode, which is the module for the NC202 software.
Well, thank you, Jonas, very much for that introduction, both to this webinar and also to myself. So as Jonas just mentioned, the secure mode is the way that we implement with our instruments the 21 CFR Part 11. So briefly, 21 CFR Part 11 is concerns itself about electronic records and electronic signatures, and these are meant to be equivalent to the paper records. There are many advantages with going over to electronic systems as opposed to paper. For example, you can have much more secure data and increase the confidentiality of your data. It allows you to move to a paperless environment. Now, this is optional, of course. There's many of our customers who are working with our systems with using the secure mode, who opt still to print out PDF reports, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on in this presentation. Moving to electronic records also, of course, allows much faster data information transfer. And because of this increased efficiency, it can also help reduce costs. The bottom line is very important to everyone. But perhaps most importantly, when working in this environment, we can also reduce, and we always aim to try and eliminate errors. And if indeed there are errors that are created during the process, then at least we can track them and then fix them in the future. So 21 CFR Part 11 is concerned with electronic records. And as such, it also has implications for other 21 CFR parts such as 21 CFR Part 58, good laboratory practice, and other GXPs, good manufacturing practice. So although this webinar is primarily focused on Part 11, I think it's worth bearing in mind it also applies to other parts. When planning this webinar, we were thinking how to make it most accessible. And we could have chosen to go through the regulations of 21 CFR 11 and show how our product complies with that, but that would have been very dry. Hopefully this was slightly less dry by using the Alcoa Plus principles. Now, the Alcoa Plus principles are embraces the 21 CFR Part 11 regulations, but I think it's an easier way to understand them in a brief webinar. So these principles, and they have been expanded to being plus, are that good data integrity are when records are attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. And the plus are complete, consistent, enduring, available, but I won't go so much into them. And it is worth bearing in mind that these are not mutually exclusive categories. In other words, some of the ways we meet the regulations apply to more than one category. So attributable, this means that login requirements and predefined user groups ensure that only authorized individuals can use the system, perform operations, add comments, or electronically sign data files. The way we implement the login requirements is using Windows Active Directory. It has the advantage that the user needs only to remember one password. And within our audit trail, and this, you can see an image of that here, we record the user that has logged in to the software, what the computer has been used, the instrument that has been used on. Typically, our users will have one computer per instrument, and what is happening. So we track this continuously. The second Alcoa guideline is about whether or not the data is legible. We ensure data is legible and human readable because the CM files, that is our proprietary raw data files, can be read using the NCView software in a human readable form. Moreover, these CM files can be printed at any time into PDFs or as CSV files. And on the right-hand side, you can see an example of our report. The report will show who has logged into the computer, who has logged into the software, who has printed the report. There's also a date stamp given both in UTC and also local time code. You can choose how much proportion of an image you'd like to see. And there is a space on the bottom of the report for manual signatures, should you wish to. And also, should you wish to use electronic signatures, you can also do that. It is important to note that embedded within the CM files is all our metadata. So when the CM files are backed up and saved elsewhere, as we recommend you do, you can always regenerate the PDF reports from those raw data files, which are secured within on the local computer. Contemporaneous. This means that the data is saved and the audit trail is recorded as it happens. In the previous slide, I mentioned the UTC, and we continuously record every action that takes place on the instrument. So here, again, a small zoom in, you can see on the right-hand side when the documents have been exported to the PDF, or when the audit trail indeed is turned on or off, or who has authorized the changes. Original. The metadata is always there. It is protected, but you can generate PDF reports after the fact, or you can have them generated immediately. So you have these options here. There's an option table on the right-hand side of the screen here. One of the options is anytime any change is made. For example, if a user would add a comment or a tag, you can have the software print the PDF report or the CSV report. You can have it either as a new report, or it says here overwrite, by which we mean add on to the existing report. Accurate. So within the Windows Active Directory, the different users of the instrument have different authorities. For example, if we look at the bottom of the screen, other user, this is someone who has not been given access to the NCView software. They can't launch it. If they were to try and open the software, this attempt is recorded in the audit trail. A user can use the software. It can also create CDF reports. In addition, a supervisor can view the audit trail and sign the data electronically. An administrator can turn on and off the secure mode, sign data, create PDF reports, view the audit trail. Now, this scheme here is just a summary of the different permissions that the different levels of users have access to, but I've showed here for simplicity's sake. So this ends the Alcoa part. Just briefly now, a little bit on data flow. So you can see the lineup of our NC202 instruments there. Each has its own computer in this scenario. And there's also, looks a bit like a hairdryer, but is in fact a barcode reader. The sort of local system is to have the instruments each able to print, but we recommend you back up your data to a local server, and you can also print directly from the server and generate PDFs from the server, because as I previously mentioned, the CM files contain all the metadata. And within this scheme, there's overarching it is the manufacturing execution system. Now, the setup of the nuclear counter in an automated system would correspond to category 3 in GAMP5. And I'm going to hand back now to Jonas to talk briefly about GAMP.
Thank you, James. Yes, I will just mention that we try to adhere to the guidelines that's promoted by GAMP5, and so good automated manufacturing practices. I should say that in the future, we will be developing fully automated systems, including having server setups that can handle the system. So we will now move outside of a category 3 and more into the 4 and 5 categories. And then I should also promote our white paper, which will be is available on our webpage, which will discuss all the different points of the 21 CFR Part 11, specifically in regards to the secure mode of the NCView software, which is a software for the NC202. And then I should say thank you very much for listening and welcome questions. So the next part will be our questions session.
So we've got a lot of questions,
yes,
which is fantastic. Thank you very much for sending them in. I can already see that we won't have time to answer all of them, but we will get back to you. So let's take it from the top here. The first question is, how is the timestamp on the audit trail and the PDF derived?
It's derived from the local workstation.
Okay, so that will mean if the local the time is wrong on the local computer,
Uh-huh.
the timestamp would also be wrong.
Yes.
And what about the offset between UTC and local time? That's also derived presumably from the local station.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about audit trail, sorry, but I've heard you mention that the audit trail can be turned on and off, and
Okay.
yeah.
Did I say that?
You did say it, and it did concern me a bit.
And you're right to be concerned, because of course that's wrong. The audit trail cannot be turned on and off. That would not be in compliance with 21 CFR Part 11. What I should have said, and I think I meant to say, is that only supervisors and administrators can open or close the audit trail for viewing purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just opening and closing.
Yes.
And then in the audit trail, you can see who opened and closed the audit trail.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that, Jonas. So another question here, which is about the audit trail. Can you automatically export the audit trail?
At this point, we do not have a feature that auto exports the audit trail, but it's something that we could definitely implement, because I think it's a feature that makes sense. So currently, you would you go to the audit trail viewer and then you export in batches. But it is definitely an interesting feature.
But could you already at this stage, if you had some third-party software or special scripts, because the audit trail is there saved, so presumably you could go and grab it?
No, you can't grab it, because it can only be read by our software. So that's the way we protect it, and protect it from being changed. So it's only our software that can open the at least for the NC view, for the NC202. It's only our software that can open the audit trail.
Understood. But our software is license free, so you can have local copies of it that are not attached to an instrument. So in that case, then you could still use your local software to open and read the audit trail.
Yes, if you have it backed up, and then open it from another version of the NC view.
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
that's correct.
Can a supervisor, let's read this here. Okay, so this question is about remote accessing the computer. I guess it's outside of the computer, and the instrument is within a clean room. Can a supervisor or administrator authorize the data externally or by remote accessing the computer?
Got it. Yes, you can remote access the computer, but you can't log into the software without the person who obtained the data, the person who did the measurement, logging out.
Okay.
But you can log in remotely if you log into the computer and sign as an administrator or a supervisor, for instance.
Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
But it's not possible for two persons to be logged into NCView to the software at the same time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I guess this also applies to the way when people set up the system using Windows AD. Then it's also the case, correct me if I'm wrong, that a particular person cannot be a member of more than one administrative group. They can't be both administrator and a supervisor.
That's correct.
At the same time.
Correct. That would conflict with the 21 CFR Part 11, that you cannot exactly follow the level of the user.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Oh, this customer or person who is interested is wondering if we can help them integrate their instruments. I'm glad they have some.
Okay.
So there must be a customer with their computer system and check that it complies with 21 CFR Part 11.
Well, when we do an installation, we usually tell people, if they purchased the instrument with the 21 CFR Part 11 license, either the secure mode for the NCView or the 21 CFR Part 11 license for the nuclear view, we do tell them to have an IT person there that can help, or has already before we meet for the installation, to have the user groups set up already in the Active Directory. But we do have we are planning a service that will provide full 21 CFR Part 11 test after the installation. Okay. So currently now we install, and then with the users IT people, we can make sure that that is correctly set up.
Okay, so just to paraphrase your answer, yes, of course we do help our customers already now, but soon we'll be offering a special service to validate the correct 21 CFR Part 11. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to jump ahead to another question here, because it relates to this, and the customer is asking about the 20 CFR Part 11 mode, which we call the secure mode, and they have an NC200, and they're wondering if that is possible to add the secure mode at a later date.
Yes, you can always purchase a license for an instrument. So the licenses are instrument specific, but you can purchase the license, which is without time limit.
Okay. Yeah. But presumably is limited to a specific instrument.
That's correct. They're made according to the serial number of the specific instrument.
Right. A question here that relates to the end of the webinar about MES. The question is, how can we transfer the output of NC200 into MES in a compliant manner in real time?
That's a good question. So, as you also mentioned during your presentation, all our data that's are saved as metadata. And then when you make a CSV file or a PDF report, then the data are exported. And once they leave the workstation, it's really up to the user how to handle them. So whether you have a LIMS system that picks them up and inserts the PDF reports into your electronic lab book, or if you have some middleware that picks up the CSV file and integrates that into your LIMS system, is really up to the end user at this point. Of course, as we will produce fully automated instruments, we will go more in the direction of having a server-based system. So we will take more charge of this part of the data handling. But at this point, once they leave the local workstation, it's really the user's responsibility to protect them.
Right, and it is of course CSV files rather than CVS file. It's a new file type I happened to invent during the course of the webinar.
Sorry, I didn't notice that.
You just prompted me to think about that.
Okay.
Whoops. So another question here: why is the customization of our scatter plots, and I presume this is in the NC200, why is that locked?
Well, if on the NC200, on the nuclear view software, you can change the data by changing the gates in the scatter plot. So if you start changing the data, it's definitely not 21 CFR Part 11 anymore. So that is really tricky to. So that's why with the nuclear view software, you can go outside of the 21 CFR Part 11 mode. Then you can make your changes. You can make sure that they're evaluated by your quality people or your PD, and afterwards, then once it's been qualified, validated, then you can log it, or you can only use logged protocols in 21 CFR Part 11 mode on nuclear view. So that's how we protect the users from using something that can potentially be misused and changed.
Yeah. Okay. This is a long one. Are you ready?
Yes.
How can the percentage CV and replicates be recorded in a 21 CFR compliant way? So this customer, they, reading between the lines, they perform analyses in triplicate and then have to calculate the percentage CV. And if it is below a certain, sorry, if it's above a certain level, they have to do a fourth replicate. And I guess if it's above that again, then it's non-compliant. They say we are struggling with how to make this conform to 21 CFR standards in terms of documentation.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting feature suggestion. I have to say, because it's not something that we can do currently. Of course, when we do our performance qualification, we do have these measurements that, but it's not something that's embedded in the software currently. But it is something that we will be working on in terms of following the data. We will be making trending software, or software that can follow measurement trends. But currently it's not part of a function, but
Right.
it's definitely something that that we will look into.
Yeah. Have you had customers mention this beforehand?
Not that specifically.
Right, but it is a nice feature.
It is, yeah.
It would make sense if this was more widespread and more easily implemented.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the local network online data backup a must to realize the feature of 21 CFR Part 11?
I'm not sure I'm understanding this correctly, but so our instruments are not as such dependent on being online. So you can run the instrument on a local workstation. You can have your user groups locally, so it will still be 21 CFR Part 11. You do not need to be online, and our instrument is not communicating online. Others that the Active Directory is communicating, but our instruments themselves are not communicating outside. So it's basically what I mentioned is a category 3. It's a very simple workstation setup, really.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a brief answer,
okay,
if I understood it correctly. If not, please write an email and clarify so we can get this right.
Cool. Do we have time for another question?
Yeah, let's just take one.
Okay. So this question is also about the audit trail. And the question is about if you have a catastrophic failure of the computer that is linked to the instrument, yet have a backup of the whole data folders, can you re-import the audit trail and everything else for that matter into a new computer?
Yes, it's possible to have a backup, full backup, and you just install.
But the folders are protected, so how does that work?
Well, if you place the folders already in the folder structure, and then install the NCView on top of it, then you should be able to.
So it has to be done in that specific order.
Yes, you would need to take the entire ChemoMetec folder in your folder system and import that before installing the NCView software.
Right. So in other words, it's also very important to back up the whole folder and not just the data files.
Yes, that's a good point. Because as you mentioned as well, the folder system are protected by a filter that we introduce as well. So you cannot just move around with the files. Yeah. Thank you very much, James. And thank you very much to the listeners. Again, if there are any questions that we did not answer, or where you were confused about the answer, or in any ways you need more information about this, you can find the 21 CFR Part 11, the secure mode white paper, on our webpage, which covers the NC 202. We also have resources for the NC 200 secure mode, or the 21 CFR Part 11, sorry, features on that, and on the NC 250 and NC 3000 as well. Again, thank you very much for joining this webinar.
Thank you.